Oops, cathead. Hello, welcome to Fridays at 4 on twitch.tv/DDO stream. I'm your community manager, Cordovan, and I'll be with you for the next hour, hanging out, having some fun, and I have got a guest with me today. So let me bring my guest on. We have got to the show here, we want to welcome Steelstar, system designer, and you're working on the loot here for Magica Myth
Yeah.
Drannor. So we're
How's
going
it
to have
going?
good, good. We have you on because we're going to talk a little bit about the loot that's coming in our next expansion. I've also got a character on Lamania, so we can show off a little bit of it. But a lot of it is going to be based on our discussion this week on the forums. We have a
Yeah.
Lamania preview that ends in about an hour here, and this is your first chance to take a look at the loot here for Update 69, Magica Myth Drannor. And so I just wanted to have Steelstar on so we could talk a little bit about it, kind of go over what's up, give you a chance to ask some questions, and just sort of have some information with our fun here on this Friday. So to start off with, level 13 heroic, level 33 legendary. Worth noting that the level cap is going up to 34 with
Right.
Magica Myth Drannor. So we got level 33 loot. This is a new tier of loot.
Yeah. This is the first time we'll have min level 33, which goes hand in hand with the level cap increase. We'll be at 33 probably throughout this year and min level 34 probably next year.
Okay. And so when you're coming up with loot for an expansion, I've been onto Lamania, I've been looking at the NPC. There's a lot of items. Do you have a number count on the items that you've had to create for Myth Drannor here?
I
I'm going to
want to
say at
say
least a
that
couple hundred, or am I wrong
yeah,
about
if
that?
you
Yeah,
include the augments,
yeah.
it's hovering around 400. Um, some of those are like the epic versions of the augments, which you're not necessarily going to see in Myth Drannor because we have heroic and legendary content for Myth Drannor. But we did create epic versions of those augments, which may show up someday if the new kinds of slots appear in epic somewhere.
We're going to talk about the augments because they're pretty special here with Myth Drannor here in just a second. But let's start with some of the named loot. What can players expect to see in terms of the named loot for this expansion? Presumably slightly higher numbers at the very least.
Yeah. So uh, the structure of loot, generally speaking, you're going to find in end and optional chests, which is nothing new. But what you're finding in those chests is a little bit different than other recent updates, where previously you'd mainly find named items, maybe a chance at weapons in an expansion pack, quest and chest. This time around, you still have the chance at a weapon suite weapon. And what we mean by weapon suite is with each expansion, we do one or two sets of weapons where we have one of every weapon that has a particular stat package on it. And you can find it in almost any chest in the expansion. So those are around. But there's also a chance when you would find one of those to instead find the rarer suite, which have different and slightly more powerful stats.
Is it similar to finding something with a mythic boost on it, or are we talking about something beyond even that?
I'd have to refresh myself on the mythic odds
Okay.
because I haven't touched that system in a little bit. Um, but it's not especially common. But if you're playing enough of Myth Drannor, you'll see them time to time. In addition to the weapons in legendary content, there are filigree. This is the Generation 3 filigree list, which is the same list of filigree you can find in Saltmarsh, but we haven't brought it anywhere outside of Saltmarsh since, so this is a good opportunity to find those filigree if you still need any and didn't find them in Saltmarsh, or maybe you never played Saltmarsh at all. And then the named loot list, which this time has named items, as you kind of expect from an end chest, but also brand new sun and moon augments, which we can delve into that system in a bit. And each of these chests has a chance to, instead of finding a named item or a sun and moon augment, to jump up to the rare loot list for that chest, which has very rare named items and potentially, depending on the chest, rare sun and moon augments.
And we're going to head on to Lamania here in just a little bit and show off some of the names and talk specifics about some of the exceptionally rare loot and things like that. Before we delve too much into the augment system, I wanted to give the community a chance to ask some general questions about the loot, and
Yeah.
also just ask a little bit. Sorry, my brain. I actually just forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, darn it. How will people know that you've got the super rare stuff? Is it named differently then?
It's completely unique loot is the thing of it.
Okay.
We're thinking about possibly having some kind of effect that goes off when someone pulls something from the rare list, but that's not present on Lamania. It's going to depend on time a little bit. But the things that exist in the rare list are wholly unique and not found anywhere else except that chest, much like regular named loot that you would find in an end chest.
Okay. Oh, the other question I wanted to get into is what's the state of things on Lamania this week? I understand you've done some work already following the debut of this on Lamania.
Yeah. So all of the items currently planned for the update, except for the raid loot, are in the dojo on Lamania. They would be in the end chest, but for the quest, but the quests are not being featured on Lamania yet. Once they are, you'll find them in the end chests where they're supposed to be. There were definitely some bugs that people were able to find, such as the sun augments not applying their effects correctly, some items having 3 or sometimes 0 effects. We've been working on fixing those issues, which should be set for the next Lamania. Yeah, so it's all there. Some of it is just in need of a little bit of polish and bug fixing. And we've been going through the thread on the forums, some Discord, some video reviews from people that have made those, looking for places we can adjust for feedback. Some of that's done, some of it may not make it in time for the next Lamania, but we're paying attention to all of it.
Yeah. There's a question in chat about why the delay on Magica Myth Drannor. I can talk about that later on in the show after we're done
Sure.
chatting about the loot here. Let's move on to the sun and moon augments. So it's been common for quite some time now that set bonuses are a key part of your loot layout. I don't know when. I mean, I guess we've had them forever in some
Ooh,
way,
yeah.
shape, or form, but especially the past 5 or so years, set bonuses have been a big part of trying to plan your gear out. And we're doing something different with set bonuses here with Magica Myth Drannor.
Sure. So the sun and moon augment system is essentially taking the place of what would be set bonuses in this pack. And if it does well, it's a system we'd like to continue using into future content. And the way it works is items in this pack, most of them, the names loot, have either a sun augment slot or a moon augment slot. These work almost exactly like the colored augment slots you would see on items, like red slots, colorless slots, etc. Except they don't take any of the colored augments. Sun slots take sun augments. Moon slots take moon augments. Sun augments you can find in the loot. They come with usually artifact bonuses to particular stats, and moon augments typically come with profane bonuses to specific stats. And that's because artifact and profane are the 2 bonus types usually found in set bonuses. And so what you can do with this system, you slot a sun augment, and you don't need 3 of them or anything. You just get the stat that's listed on the augment, like any other augment. Mm-hmm. You can essentially use this to customize your own set bonus by putting in 5 sun augments that give artifact bonuses to things that you need, and 5 moon augments that give profane bonuses to things that you need. And these won't stack necessarily with previous set bonuses, but if you had some loot with sun and moon augments and some with previous set bonuses that used different stats, you could kind of combine these to optimize your build.
It'll be similar to other loot rules in D&D and DDO where same type doesn't stack, right? So,
right.
But having an artifact bonus to, I don't know, intelligence and another one that reduces your spell point cost or whatever would also work with any existing sets that you've got. But they're not going to count toward other kinds of sets because they're named differently and what have you. So this, I imagine, gives people the benefit of not having to worry about which slot goes where quite so much. Right now, hey, I need to
Right.
keep my bracers, even though I don't like these 3 bits on it, because I want to keep my set bonus for my 4-piece set bonus or what have you. And this really takes it out of that realm into it kind of blows that whole concept out of the water. It's
Yeah.
just put it where you want, as long as it's got a slot for it, right?
Exactly. It really opens up the kinds of combinations you can make among loot. We were definitely seeing a trend where if an expansion's set bonuses didn't perfectly replicate the kind of min-maxed structure that players had in the previous update, it was really, really hard for them to be able to switch out of that to some of the newer loot because so much of it leaned upon I need this exact combination of 5 to 10 items. This Myth Drannor is not necessarily going to alleviate all of that because it has itself, even though it has a lot of items, a limited number of items, and it's still not going to be the perfect base items for every single build. But we do see, we do envision that people are going to use a combination of this and some older sets for some time. And if we are able to bring the Sun and Moon Augment to future updates, there will be more base items that open up more builds for more people to be able to do these weird combos.
All right. I see in our forum thread that at least so far, Sun and Moon augments are unbound. Is that actually going
Yes,
to happen? Okay.
that's the tentative hope right now. As usual, it could change before release, but we are kind of hoping that they are something that people can farm for because unlike a lot of our other augments, these drop in specific chests like named loot. You go to this dungeon looking for this augment, uh, but also that you might accumulate some you don't need, might be able to trade them with others. Um, one that you have that they need for one that you need that they have. Uh, so our hope is to leave them unbound. We're going to keep an eye on it through the rest of the Lamania cycles.
These augments are going to work generally like existing augments do, as in you can use a
Yep.
jeweler's toolkit to unslot them, you can overwrite them
Mm-hmm.
with a different augment, that sort of thing. I understand that they do have a minimum level of 30 for the legendary
Mm-hmm.
augments and 1 for the heroic augments. What's the purpose of having the minimum level on them like that?
So the minimum level they roughly correspond to the tiers of set bonuses that we have in recent updates. Oh, did we lose my camera?
We did. You just froze at one
Ah,
point.
shoot.
It could have been worse
Okay.
though. It's not the worst pose
It's
in the
now
world. Yeah.
exit while we are talking.
Yeah.
Uh, they roughly correspond to the tiers of set bonuses we've had throughout heroic, epic,
Yeah, go ahead and
and
cycle your camera if you want to. I've got you off the visuals at the moment.
there we go.
Yep. All right, there you
Uh,
go. We're back.
and so we made a lot of the sun and moon augments match the numbers in those set bonuses with some slight adjustments for balance, uh, and then created essentially a heroic tier of these augments, an epic tier of these augments, and a legendary tier of these augments. Uh, so the ones you'll find in legendary are min level 30. They should be usable throughout legendary as we add more gear that has these slots. In heroic, right now there's only gear that's min level 13, but as we add more updates, they may be at different min levels. You could keep using those augments throughout that. Some of the heroic augments are not min level 1, they're min level 5 or 10. And that's just balance concerns about certain effects being too strong at min level 1.
Yeah.
So a few of them have higher min levels in heroic.
So it's future proofing ultimately, because
Yeah,
if the loot is level 33 right now with Magic and Myth Drannor, then min level 30 is somewhat irrelevant because all this gear is going to be level 33, right? So it's
right.
not like you can put a Sun Augment today on a level 31 piece of gear that you have because it doesn't have the Sun Augment slot.
Right. But in the
Yeah.
future, we might make loot that is min level 31, and you could use those just fine.
Yep. Okay. Let me take a couple of questions here then, and then maybe we'll transition in game and look at a few things
Yeah.
on Lamania. So, Will the Sun and Moon augments be as common as filigree?
Not quite as common, no. If my memory serves me right, on Elite, generally speaking, you're finding a filigree on almost 100% of the time in end chests. Sun and Moon augments are dropping at about the same rarity as named items in this pack.
Okay. We don't typically get into exact percentage drop rates on that. So.
Right.
What's going to be special about the raid gear?
To be determined. We're not talking about raid gear yet. It's not on Lamania. There's still some planning that needs to go into it. Right now, we're very focused on the raid loot and the level cap increase. Sorry, the quest loot and the level cap increase.
This is sort of a bit of an off-topic question. Someone's saying, could we ever do, say, an epic and legendary quest pack rather than heroic legendary? I think the answer to that is kind of yes, but...
Kind of, yes. The tech makes it a little difficult. Theoretically possible, would need some work.
Johnny, maybe you need to clarify your question a little bit, but he's saying, do we mean base items? So not only appears on named items, can also be found in normal chests? I'm guessing
Sun and Moon augments.
Yeah, these are not found on random gen loot.
Right.
Right. It's named items only.
That's something that I think could happen potentially someday in the future, but there's no plans for it right now. Right now, it's just on the Drannor named loot.
Dark Wolfer posits that cold is the top elemental damage type at endgame. Do you think any of these new items will change that? I don't know that I even agree that cold is tops. I've always heard some others also in that running.
That's up for debate, but no, yeah. I think for the most part, elemental damage is kept roughly equal on these items. So whatever is currently up top is probably going to stay there, at least until we get to raid loot, where things get a little meta shifty.
Legendary's Sword of Shadow when? You did the epic one. Okay. Johnny wants to know about the set affixes in Myth Drannor loot. Do we have new kind of set bonus types in this loot, or is it basically pulling from the existing benefits table that we see in set bonuses?
In set bonuses, we're largely sticking to what's already out there, which is artifact for most, profane for most, in things you've seen before. You have the few standouts like hit point percentage and spell criticals that use different bonus types of set bonus, typically legendary, and those will be legendary in the Sun and Moon augments as well. There are a few effects in general that are appearing in Sun and Moon augments that weren't around much before. The one I'll call out specifically is Rune Arm Charge Speed. Appears in both Sun and Moon augments, and that's for two reasons. One, it was my prototype test case when I was making the augments, and two, I'm greedy and wanted that effect.
All right, let's head into Lamania a little bit and talk to the loot guy. This person actually brings you all the stuff. Why don't I'm assuming that the lists for 13 and 33 are basically the same. Is that correct?
Yes, I think the only difference is some effects like Reinforced Fists versus Superior Reinforced Fists, and Legendary has artifacts, which Heroic does not.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to focus on the Legendary stuff here. We see a Buckler, a large, small Tower Shield of the Fallen Age. This, for example, gets you Rough Hide, Shield Spikes, Shield Bashing, plus 15. I assume plus 15 is the typical stat now for 33 ml shields?
Yeah, at the moment. Shield numbers are always a little weird. On kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit, a lot of our weapons and other things have an internal scaling system that handles where things should be at particular levels. Shields never got that, and so the numbers get a little funny sometimes. So I'm literally later today or early tomorrow going to take a numbers pass through shields in this update. They do have the very interesting new effect on there of legendary hit point percentage. Is that on the ones you're looking at? It's very tiny on my screen.
I don't think so, unfortunately.
Okay. Then I need to take a look on that on a bug level if they're not on there. But essentially, the new shields have legendary hit point percentage on them, which is typically seen in some old set bonuses and
Oh, yeah,
notably
yeah.
green steel.
Okay, the profane life force, is that what you're talking about? Yep.
No,
Oh,
no, this should be a legendary bonus to hit point percentage.
it could be that I'm just
Um,
not looking at the right piece here. I do notice that these Buckler's Shield of the Fallen Age actually does have a regular set bonus with it, the legendary Forbidden Knowledge as
that's a
well.
bug.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have fixed that for next
Okay, that is a
preview
bug.
already.
All right, there we go. So let's move to the Belt of Bold Brilliance. This is the first
Sure.
one we've come across that actually has that moon augment slot in addition to a colorless and green augment slot. So it doesn't
Hmm.
replace augments. It's another
Right.
option on top of
It's
that.
in addition.
Yeah. And we got boots here that all seem to be moon. Is it items have moon? No, like here's cloak with sun.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
there are some sun and moon theming in this updates loot, especially the armors, the helmets, and the cloaks. And that's in part due to the art that we got and the sun and moon theming of the elves in Myth Drannor, especially. So if you have one of the sun helms, one of the sun armors or cloaks or monk outfits, and a sun cloak, those are usually going to look very nice together. They would be a set if we were doing set bonuses in this update, but we're not.
Okay. I'm just going to real quick pop on one of these cloaks and see if I can get it to
Sure.
the art, as far as you're aware, is in.
The cloaks should be good. Some of the armors are not appearing properly. I just fixed that
Okay.
internally.
Yeah, this
But yeah,
one's
the cloak
clearly
works.
a sun cloak there, and force arrow. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very flowery.
There's another force one, and there should be a moon cloak as well.
Yeah. There we go.
I really like how that moon cloak turned out.
Get rid of the text so you can just see it a little bit better. Yeah, very nice. All right. So I guess at this point we're really looking at the named loot. We have a lot of items to get through, so I don't
Yeah.
want to get too much down the line. But it looks like we are still capped out at 30% speed here.
Yeah, that's going to be typical. As speed has a really weird scaling throughout the game, but you're not going to see item-based movement speed really above that for performance reasons.
Yeah. All right. All right. Yeah. So I guess people can take a look at this, and there is a forum thread that has actually captured all the images. Thank you to whoever did that. That was an awful lot of work. Any of the eye slots that you think might be particularly worth taking a look at?
And it's not in this preview. Next preview, all of the goggles are going to have brand new visual appearances.
Oh, okay.
It is the third time in DDO history we've gotten new goggles.
Okay.
And they look really great. I just finished hooking them up today. They're going to look fantastic. Let me get to item list. In terms of the goggles, there's a particularly nice monk set that I like.
Yes.
It's where you're getting your
That's
reinforced
the
fists.
Meditative mind, right? Where you get enhanced
Yeah.
key. Yep. And then
Yep,
superior.
it's a set of
reinforced.
glasses.
Yep.
It's going to be a diamond-shaped pair of glasses as it goes, because we got new glasses in with the new goggles as well.
Oh,
Our
nice.
team did really, really well on these. I really like those, and the goggles that are kind of right before them in the list, which is enhanced blood rage, life sealed, ghostly, relentless fury. I think it's going to be fun on a couple of different builds.
Every time you take damage, you fall into an unholy. There's a chance you can fall into an unholy blood rage. That sounds intense. So
Yeah.
get slapped and it's like. So, all right. Let's move on to the next category here in the loot thread. Go. These are specifically the legendary weapons, and you were talking about the weapons suite earlier, but this is really what we're talking about. Bastard sword, battle axe, long sword, etc. But on the list here, they're showing up under different items. We've got the legendary blessed longsword of the Fallen Age, and the
Sure.
booming longsword of the Fallen Age. So I
So-
assume that relates to the bonus types upon it.
Yeah, so there's just the base, legendary bastard, sword of the fallen age, etc., and that's your typical hit weapons. Those I believe have chaos damage, keen, and alignment bypass.
Yep.
Um, and you have one of those in every weapon type. They're there; they'll show up in chests on occasion. Um, and then the ones that you're seeing that have a different prefix, like booming, are the caster items in the weapon suite. Typically, we do these as scepters, but given this was a very elf themed pack, and we have some very nice long swords elsewhere, we did long swords as caster sticks for the iconic Chaos Mancer. We decided to do long swords as the caster handheld weapons in this update. So your burning long sword of the fallen age is going to be your fire caster weapon.
If you're not proficient, you're not going to be swinging that scepter so much, but you're probably not doing that anyway. So.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. Deathly Longsword of the Fallen Age. That looks like a negative-ish one.
Yeah.
Is there any... let me get to chat here in just a second, but these all seem to follow along the Fallen Age lines.
Yep, which is pretty typical of how we've done base weapons in expansion packs lately. There is a second rare suite, which I think is, if you look back at the dojo guide, for rare weapons.
Yep.
And that would be the Golden Age suite, which...
Rare legendary weapons? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where did I
So
put
Golden
them?
Age versus Fallen Age.
Right. Thinking of Myth Drannor, you have weapons that are, a little bit worn by time in the fall of Myth Drannor, and then you have the Golden Age weapons, which, kind of come from the prime of Myth Drannor itself. They are more force themed on the weapon ones, and the caster ones have a little bit more of a spell crit and DC focus, and pair nicely with one of the Fallen Age swords in the other hand.
I will have to double check to see what it said on the other ones, but I noticed the Blessed Longsword actually gives you longsword proficiency, thus negating.
Yeah,
what I just stated, so.
They are meant to. I'm not sure all of them have it quite yet, so I'm going to run a check on that after this.
Yep. And that is the full weapon suite here as well.
Right. There are 3 more weapons, which may be in the general rare items dojo vendor, and those are part of the rare loot, so they're harder to come by, and they are echoes of 3 elven longswords from D&D lore.
Okay.
Specifically, the Art Blade, the War Blade, and the Ruler's Blade. Those are going to have unique art. It's not in this preview, but I've seen it. It's shaping up really well. I don't think they have effects on them in this one either, because we are still working out the very end of the stats they're going to have, but those will be particularly strong if they are something that works for your build in the end.
All right. Let me get back to our chat room here just a second. Is there any kind of augment upgrade system from heroic to epic?
Not at the moment, no.
Yep.
Since they're dropping named items, typically you would farm heroic for heroic things and legendary for legendary things, just as we don't have a upgrade system for for the named items from heroic to legendary.
I think you had talked about this a little bit earlier, but the person is asking about allowing these new augment slots to be put into old loot, put them in the red, yellow, blue, green slots. That's something we could do perhaps in the future, I would assume, but it would be a decision.
It would be extremely powerful given the kind of far too high than there probably should be number of colored slots available to any given player. It would more than double for most players the amount of these augments you could slot. Right now, it's a fairly closed ecosystem. You're never going to have more than 5 sun slots and 5 moon slots. And we've sort of balanced that against the typical number of slots you get out of the set bonus. and we don't really plan to let the power of that increase by letting you have more slots.
Yeah.
So I think it's very unlikely that we would allow sun and moon augments into colored slots.
There's some chat about some of the bugs that players are seeing in the loot on this first preview. This was our first preview for Myth Drannor loot, so there will be other previews with this. I believe we have at least one more Lamania preview where these items are going to see an update in terms of functionality and what have you. So, pretty typical for our Lamania cycle there.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a lot of loot. There's bound to be bugs here and there, but again, we've been keeping careful checks on the forums and in other places for these bugs, and I've been fixing what I'm seeing. I think I'm about at the end of the list, other than things that have come up so far in this Fridays at 4. But if you see a bug on something, bug report it, put it in the forum thread, and we will see it.
Epic Soul is saying we're introducing legendary hit points on shields to move tanks away from legendary green steel. This person is concerned, are we now just locking them into wearing a shield? So rather than basically swapping LGS to shields as a requirement.
So, a couple of things on that. We, in addition to what's on the shields, which is 5, 10, 15, 20% on bucklers, small, large, and tower shields, we have a few other sources of legendary HP in this update. We wanted the biggest on shields because typically we want your tanks and your shield users to have that bulk of HP and for it to be a little less potently available to a lot of other builds. If you're not one of those builds and you're still hanging on to legendary green steel, we can kind of only do so much with that. But in addition to the shields, there is the I forget if they are sun or moon, but one of the augments for percent hit points goes up to 10%, and that is available to many builds to slot into, I believe it is a sun slot for 10%. In addition, 10%, and we haven't talked these things out yet, so this is new information. 10% is available on an epic feat that is going to be available with Myth Drannor starting at, I want to say level 21, where you could just take a feat to get 10% legendary bonus to hit points. So you can't get all the way to 20 outside of shield. That might change sometime, but typically we want the highest numbers to be on shield tanks. But we also want some of that percentage to be more broadly available than it is right now, and for people to not feel like they have to build legendary green steel to compete with current meta.
Okay. I'm not sure, running it back, what your question is. It's a little too complicated. Can you simplify your question? Let me know specifically what your concern is related to new augments. Trilogy 2022, I can answer that question for you. There is an Eladrin animation bug right now when using a repeater. That should be corrected in our next game update, which will be, I believe, as soon as this upcoming week. But I'm not quite sure on the timing of that, so it may be a little after that. But it'll be in the next game update regardless, is my understanding on the animation fix there. Okay. We're getting a little off topic, but what about adding colorless augments to legendary green steel items? You just made 400 items. Surely you want to go back to old loot.
Yeah, no, at this point, legendary green steel, it's a good system. It still exists. I think it provides a lot of value to people who have invested heavily in it, but it's not our focus right now. So I don't see us going in and making significant balance changes to that system.
Yeah. All right, let's go back onto the loot vendor here and take a look at some of the... Why don't we look at the augments? This is a big list that's populating here. What should we be looking at? We see like lunar gem as a moon.
Yep, your lunar gems are your moon augments. Your solar gems are your sun augments. And what you should just be seeing is a whole lot of fairly, expected stat bonuses, things you've seen before in set bonuses.
Yep. Plus 15 profane to melee power, plus 10 to
Mm-hmm.
natural armor, plus 30 to negative amplification, plus 30 to PRR, things like that. And so
Yep.
you're saying specifically these augments will appear in specific quests, right? So if I want the
Right.
one of strength, I'm going to need to figure out which quest has the lunar gem of strength, for example.
Exactly. They drop just like, oh, I know there's a strength item in this particular dungeon's end chest. I'm going to go farm that. It's the same way with these augments in Myth Drannor. You would find out which dungeon drops the lunar strength augment. You would go farm that until it drops. Or trade with someone because they're unbound.
Right, unbound. Good point. Auction house as well might be a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about this at the start, but let's repeat this here. How do they find these augments? They're just in the named loot chests in the new content?
They're in the named loot chests right now, with about I want to say around 4 per dungeon in the end chest of the dungeon. I'm currently noodling on if I want a chance for like any one from the list to drop in certain optional chests, but that's not something we've fully decided yet. Just like you can kind of find the loot, the weapon suite in optional chests, being able to sometimes pull one of the augments at random, complete random, from an optional chest could be interesting. Something we're thinking about.
As someone who doesn't always have the greatest loot luck unless I'm on stream, in which case I have great loot luck, I would love to see that as optionals. Yeah. I love my optional fights, so yeah. All right. I mean, really, it's kind of pretty straightforward here. I don't know that we have a whole lot more to mention in regard to the augments there. So.
Yeah, it is a pretty straightforward system, especially if you're already familiar with the colored augments and how they work.
Okay. And I am looking at the... Okay, we already looked at the weapons. Legendary Echo of the Crown Blade.
Yes.
Warblade. And Art Blade.
So I could talk about what's currently planned to be on those, because they're missing their effects in this preview.
Sure.
So let me pull those up. Right now, planned for the Echo of the Ruler's Blade, would be light damage on hit and on crit, felling the oak, exceptional alluring skills, 3 charges of a heal SLA, which would be cure moderate wounds and heroic. I think one other effect I'm still figuring out, and a slightly higher item power than usual, which would bring the numbers somewhat higher.
I'm receiving a naming convention that I assume means something, which is Art Blade, Crown Blade, and Warblade.
Yes.
I assume that's toward player role type, right?
So the Crown Blade, the Warblade, and the Art Blade are 3 long swords that exist in Forgotten Realms lore. They were wielded by essentially Elven sovereigns or rulers, and there was typically rights involved in being able to be worthy to equip them at all. And it's kind of a complicated history for each of these weapons. These are echoes of those weapons. They're not the weapons themselves, but much like our Echo of Whelm, Echo of Wave that we've done in some previous updates with specific weapons that are known in Forgotten Realms lore. These are echoes of these blades that have split off for their own purposes.
Oh, all my inventory is full. Well, fine. Let's put on these Art Blade cloaks here real quick.
These also have specific art that does not appear to be in. Let's take a look at that.
Yep.
Actually, they might be using those cloaks, but these are going to have, and you'll notice if you equip the armors related to these, that they are all just appearing as silver. We are getting colors for these that match the weapons themselves, which are also not in. So there's a significant amount of art still coming on those.
Sure.
So yes, the Ruler's Blade in lore was typically for a very charismatic leader, and had some light and healing properties. So we've tried to represent that here in that weapon. The Warblade is somewhat self-explanatory in terms of its deal, uh, and has stats to match that. It has 3 charges of a Blade Barrier SLA.
Okay.
Stacking Accuracy, I believe that's legendary typed, which you can find on a couple other items in the pack as well. Slashing, hit, and crit damage, and Dripping with Magma, which is a effect that a lot of players quite like.
Nice. I just
The art
cleared my
blade.
inventory out. I'm trying out a few of the armors, and clearly a couple of them need a little work yet.
Yeah, they do. I've just resolved a lot of that, and again, they're all appearing as the same color right now, which will be fixed. We are getting colors for these that match the specific blades that they go to. The art blade is the third of these, the Echo of the Art Blade. This is in lore, the more spellcasting focused of the 3. It has Null Magic Guard, Eversight, a Sacred bonus to Spell Focus Mastery, so that's just stacking spell DCs unless you somehow have another Sacred bonus to that. Quality Potency, and one other effect that I'm still working on that may still change.
There was something before we move away too much from these rare legendary items, I see towards the end of the list a series of rings called the Autumn, Equinox, Spring, Summer, Solstice. So Equinox, Solstice, and Theurgy? Theurgy of Autumn, Spring, Summer? I don't even know what's a Theurgy.
A Theurgy, let me get the correct definition.
Yeah.
The operation or effect of a supernatural divine agency in human affairs.
Ooh.
Is your dictionary definition for that.
All right.
These are your artifacts for the pack.
Nice. Okay.
They are 4 caster rings and 4 kind of weapon-oriented rings that align to spring, summer, fall, and winter specifically. I have seen some player feedback that would really like both non-ring artifacts in this pack as well as like more support and healer artifacts. I'm not sure we're going to move off ring on this one because so much of this pack leans on the sun and moon augments. And rings in general, even though artifacts can have sun and moon slots, ring slot items do not. There's kind of a breakdown on the forums if you go to the main Lamania thread of which of these new slots appear on what kind of items. But rings do not get sun and moon slots. And so what we wanted to do for balance reasons, at least in this pack, is have the rings be the artifacts that they are playing a strong role, even though they don't have these slots. That said, I might be able to find time to get a more support-related artifact in. Time's going to have to tell on that one.
All right. And I'm just showing off a couple of the blades.
I think we lost my camera again.
Oh, we did. All right. That may be my fault.
Is flaky, and if it gets bumped the wrong way, it gets unhappy.
Could be a memory issue on my end as well. I do have a lot of things running at the same time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, this is looking pretty good. So I think what I'm going to do is just see if there's community questions, and if not, maybe we'll let you get to your weekend here. Or
and if there's any questions, that don't make it through here. There is always the forum thread for Lamania, which I think should remain open until we do the next Lamania. And Discord, there's a channel about loot in this preview. I'm happy to field questions there too.
Why are we changing the artifact percentage hit point to legendary? Do you know what's being asked there?
So in the current preview, the Sun Augment for percentage hit point bonus is listed as artifact when it should be listed as legendary. It was in my documentation as legendary. It was always meant to be legendary. It ended up saying artifact because the descriptions for these got done as a batch. So it's just a text error.
Okay.
Flat out. It was never meant to be artifact.
Yep. Can you talk a little bit more about the decision to make certain gear slots moon or sun, and not just a slot that would be either Moon Sun to open up customization. So basically, why pick one?
Sure. Um, in terms of the overall kind of number of slots, we went with 5 sun and 5 moon because typically when you look at these set bonuses in previous X packs, they are typically giving out about 4 different effects. Uh, Sometimes closer to 6 when you range in that like melee and range power were often considered a single line item, whether you needed both or not, um, and things like that. So typically there's 4 line items in any given set bonus. Uh, and so 5 slots should let you cover almost all of that you wanted in whatever combination you wanted. So we did 5 of each. And if it turns out you had 4 line items before that are perfectly covered by the augments, and then you have a 5th slot you can do whatever you want with, which is a little bit of power increase in certain situations. So we erred on the side of getting close to slightly over what you were able to get through a existing set bonus. In terms of what slots went on what items, we started with Artifact, which in recent expansions, your Artifact set bonuses have typically been on your armor, your cloak, and your helmet. So we kept those as sun slots, so you could keep getting your Artifact through those slots. We added goggles, in part because, like the 3 other slots we just described, it's a visual slot. It comes with art. You're usually, either showing your helmet or your goggles, but we wanted to rope that in there in part because of that. And the last one we kind of debated for a while, but we thought Trinket was a good fit to round that out. And then the moon slots kind of fell onto the rest. And the reason that rings didn't end up making the cut is in part because there's 2 of them. We'd either have to cut 2 other slots to hit 5, or just not do rings, which is kind of how that landed how it did.
All right. Any chance of having Assassinate, insightful/quality as augments?
As regular augments, it's something we could think about. We, in terms of loot between Vecna and now, which is when I sort of had picked it up from the previous designer who had been doing items, the chromatic augment system really kind of helps round out builds. And one of the things we see in feedback a lot is, this effect shouldn't appear on base items anymore because it exists as an augment and we could just slot that. When really kind of the intent of that system is to help round out the things you're not getting on the base items. So if it is on a base item, slot something else. So at the moment, partially because we have our hands in so many other systems right now, especially trying to get the expansion pack out the door, the Year of the Dragon, the VIP loyalty system, adding more chromatic augments is not something we're looking into doing right now, but it's something we could look into again sometime in the future.
Specific question about the Warblades dripping with magma effect. Will it affect spells or melee, or just melee hits?
By flavor of that weapon, it should really only be weapon hits, because the Warblade is not in lore really a caster item. But it's something we could think about. I know we've had some items that have the version of dripping with magma that affects spells before. I'm just not sure that's a good fit for this item, especially when we have another one of this blade trio that's geared toward casters specifically.
Sure. We haven't really shown the public area for our Lamania previews yet, and we do have the loot here. What will players see in terms of loot in the wilderness of Myth Drannor?
So there are some items from this list that you've already seen that only drop in the wilderness chests, as well as some sun and moon augments that only drop in the wilderness chests. I think right now they are related to some bosses you might find in the wilderness and not just generic chests. But one of the things I'm looking at right now is making the general wilderness chests a little more interesting, if I can.
All right. I am not seeing any other immediate questions for me. Do you know why the artifact rings don't have spell crit? Is it would just
Let me take a look at their stat packages for 1 second. I think I was balancing these against. I think I might have been balancing them against some of the other weapons in this pack. But if that's something people would like to see on here instead, that could be possible. You know, looking at an expansion pack's loot, I'm trying to generally balance these against the ecosystem of the pack as a whole, as well as looking at what people might combine it with outside it. So yeah, that's something I can make a note of and take a look at.
All right. I think we're going to wrap it up. I've got about 10 minutes yet, but I have some other news on that to get to as well. So I think we're
Okay.
gonna let you go, Steelstar. Thank you so much for joining us here to talk about the loot coming with Magic Myth Drannor here. Got a lot of work ahead of you in the next couple of
Yeah.
weeks.
Yep. I'm still doing this, and then I'm working on. I think I mentioned once earlier feats for the level cap increase, so that'll be really interesting.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for being here, and I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Have fun.
All right. I'll see y'all.
Let me cut out a few cameras. Oop, that's not it. There we are. All right. And let me take care of that. Here we are. I saw a question about getting a second raid in the future, or in the near future. We do have a raid coming that'll be released afterwards. I'm not aware of a plan to do a second raid at this time, but if that changes, I will let you know. Alright, before I wrap things up here, I wanted to go through just a little bit of other news, because I do actually have some other news to get to here for the show. The first one being that we have adjusted the release date for Magic of Myth Drannor. So this week we have announced that August 14th will be the release date for Magic of Myth Drannor. You can find that statement over on DDO.com, the forums, social media, and elsewhere. We're planning another preview for later this month that'll probably feature something like most of the quests that'll be coming here with Magic of Myth Drannor, along with the updated loot work that Steelstar was talking about. I know Titan, for example, was in chat calling out some of the loot issues that we're seeing during this early preview, this first early preview on Lamania, but that's just a early preview on Lamania thing, and it'll get fixed up for our next preview, and before it goes live. So August 14th is when Magic of Myth Drannor is going to hit the live game worlds. I did want to call out a quick sale notice, which is that Autos boxes are back. We have Heroic, Epic, and Improved Autos boxes in the store through July 19th, so through the 19th. That's coming up, not too long from now, so go ahead and take advantage of that. If you are interested in picking up an Autos box, this weekend we have a 30% crafting XP boost through July 14th, so through Sunday, 30% crafting XP boost. You can see my son's got the cat slightly unhappy about being picked up and brought on camera. And there we go. And then the final bit I actually wanted to, real quick, I'm just going to change scenes quick and put that up on the page. There we go. So, there has been a lot of talk about Discord this week, and it's been a large focus of some of the work that I've been doing. So let's get into it a little bit on the live stream as we wrap up the show for the week. So I announced this week, this Wednesday in fact, that we're going to be opening an official Dungeons & Dragons online Discord. This is something that's been in the works for, it's been on my to-do list, frankly, for months. But I'm making it happen finally. So it's been a little while, and a lot of game studios already have official Discords, but we have not to this point, and we're getting ready to roll one out. In order to make it happen, because it is a 24/7 IRC with bells and whistles, we're going to be enlisting the help of volunteer moderators. That means potentially you. You're not going to be on a schedule. You're not going to get paid. You don't. There's no expectation about, well, okay, it's Saturday night, so it's my shift on the DDO Discord. We're not doing anything like that. What we're planning to do is bring in probably in the range of a 10 to 20, perhaps even a few more than that, moderators to keep an eye on the Discord so that at any given point there's a likelihood that someone with mod powers is going to be on to delete whatever needs to get deleted, to elevate any roles and permissions as needed, and to escalate, frankly, to me, anything that needs to be escalated. If you're interested, and I've already heard from a whole bunch of people, but if you're interested, you can find this link on DDO.com, fill out an application, and send it my way. Again, no one's getting paid for this, but we're also not going to be putting you on shifts or anything like that. And I will be doing some points and other code-related giveaways, pretty much as much of it as I can reasonably get away with, to say thanks for the time that you put in. And this is going to be a full-on Discord. We're going to have voice chat, for one thing. No video chat, but we're going to have voice chat. And you'll even be able to, say, drop a link to it in the party chat and go straight to voice channel 17 or whatever, and be able to utilize Discord's voice chat. So that is pretty exciting. We also have a thread set up similar to the forums in terms of topics. I do have a build thread, like an actual Discord thread thing that I'm going to be doing as well. Got some DDO-related reactions on there, and it should just be a good time. This has been a request for years on the part of the community, and I'm really thrilled that we've been finally able to make it happen. The big change was really the ability to do volunteer moderators, and with the community's help, we could actually make this thing happen. So we'll see how it goes. I'm expecting it to be a pretty busy time, especially those first few weeks until things settle down a bit, but it'll be worth doing, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I don't have a formal release day for when the Discord will open. It's being set up as a community server, and I need to onboard some volunteer moderators first. But the goal is to get it out before the release of Magicka Myth Drannor, so that would put it before August 14th. And we'll see where we end up there. But I want to have it in place, and people have settling in and doing their thing in time for Magicka Myth Drannor. So, cool. I'm not expecting it to really impact the existing DDO Discords, the player-run ones. I think both will live just fine side by side. I'm also expecting to see about the same level of communication from others on the team in the Discord. You know, at the moment, this is going to be a community service, not really a place to do constant AMAs or what have you. But perhaps we will have a little more interactivity on the part of the team who wants to get a quick answer to a question or get some quick feedback. That kind of thing, because we already see that, say, on the Players Council Discord that we run. But we'll see how it goes. I don't understand what you mean by, Vino, can we look into a lesser racial TR tome? There is no such thing as a lesser TR tome. I'm not quite understanding what you're wanting to do there. Basically just swap races without having to undergo a racial reincarnation, maybe? Oh, I do have a bit of news. I know we're already at 5 o'clock, but I forgot to mention this earlier. Someone is asking about the Mimic Hunt, and I don't have any news about when the Mimic Hunt will be here, but I do have news about Crystal Cove. And that is that starting next Thursday, July 18th, we're going to be bringing out Crystal Cove. It's going to be coming back. No new loot, no new systems or anything. It's the same as it was last time. But it's going to be arriving for the first time in a long time. So if you've been waiting to get some of that Crystal Cove reward stuff, your chance will start on Thursday, July 18th. It's going to run through July 28th, being shut off the morning of the 29th. So next week, Crystal Cove is going to be coming back as well. I actually had 40 people sign up to be a Discord mod in the first 24 hours of putting out that application there. I wasn't sure that I was going to get more than a handful, and turns out I got a lot. So I don't think we're going to end up having 40 mods for the Discord. That seems like a lot of work to manage, and perhaps too many. But we will have quite a few, and that gives us quite a number of options in terms of finding the right people and geographically diverse people to moderate the Discord, because that's really the key, right? I need people who can keep an eye on things when I'm asleep, so I need people in London and Germany and Australia and all over the place. And so far so good on that. We've got a lot of good candidates that have applied so far. Okay, so Vino, you're confused. There is no such thing as a lesser TR tome. There is a lesser reincarnation, but it is not a true reincarnation. And a lesser racial reincarnation would allow you to choose another race, but keep the same class. Okay. I would have to look into our reincarnations. Trying to look something up. Will Crystal Cove come back for Talk Like a Pirate Day? No, I don't think so. One of the reasons we wanted to bring this out, we wanted to bring it back due to player request, and one of the reasons we want to bring it out now is that we want to, at some point here, increase the level for Myth Drannor, which means adding the CR up to 34 at the very least, and perhaps offering higher level tier loot as well to match the level cap that's going to be coming with Myth Drannor. But that work is going to take work, and we have to get the expansion out. So we're bringing back Crystal Cove next week with the typical level cap of 32 before it becomes 34. By the time Talk Like a Pirate Day comes out, the level cap will be 34, and so I don't think we would want to bring Crystal Cove out for this year's Talk Like a Pirate Day, because it wouldn't be able to support the updated CR rating, that work that will be needed. So, alright, that's going to wrap it up with the show. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. I'll be back next Friday with more for Fridays at 4. These shows get up on YouTube within a few hours after going live. If you're on YouTube, thank you so much for being here. Consider giving us a like to spread the word of this show to others, and subscribe to get these videos in your feed. Have a great weekend, everyone, and I'll talk to you all again next week. Bye-bye.